This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Break through the busiest time of year with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ. With real-time guidance and endless ways to move, you can personalize your workouts and train with confidence, helping you reach your goals in less time. Let yourself run, lift, sculpt, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
New Maybelline Serum Lipstick. Maybe it's not just lipstick, it's lush color with endless possibilities. It's serum infused with a hyaluronic acid and oil blend for 8-hour plumping moisture in tone-enhancing shades. It's more than the shade, it's who's wearing it. You. New Maybelline Serum Lipstick.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts. I'm your haunted host, Jennifer, a professional medium and a teller of ghost stories. This week, I am traveling to Seaside, Oregon for the Oregon Ghost Conference. It's bound to be a great weekend, and while I'm gone, the ghosts will keep you company, and I'll be back soon. A friend of mine who works as a flight attendant told me the creepiest story, one that she swears is 100% true, and knowing her, I believe her. She was working a long-distance flight back to the US, and there was cargo being transported in the lower section of the plane, which isn't unusual. Partway through the flight, she had to head down to the cargo area for something. She didn't say exactly why, but she had to descend the little stairwell that leads down. As she started walking down, she noticed a man sitting calmly on one of the steps. She was startled, of course. No passengers are ever allowed down there, and told him he wasn't supposed to be in that area. The man was polite and apologetic. He explained that he was just keeping his wife company since she was terrified of flying. He even gave her the wife's full name. After she finished what she was doing, she felt a little concerned. If this woman was that nervous, maybe she could offer her some reassurance or check to see if she needed anything. So she walked the long length of the cabin looking for the man and the woman he had mentioned. She ended up needing to check the manifest to find this woman by name, and she found the woman, clearly distressed. But here's where it gets strange. The man wasn't with her. In fact, someone else was sitting in the seat next to her. So my friend crouched down and gently said something like, "I heard you weren't feeling great. Can I get you anything to help you feel more at ease?" Then the woman kind of teared up and said she was doing her best, but it was difficult. She was a nervous flyer to begin with, and on top of that, she was accompanying her husband's body back home. He had passed away overseas, and his remains were being transported in the cargo hold. That's when it hit her. The man she saw sitting on the stairs, it was him. She said he looked completely real, not ghostly, not flickering or translucent or anything like that, just solid and kind. For a moment, my friend honestly thought the crew might have been pulling a prank on her. So as they landed, she made a point to watch every single person disembark. She wanted to be absolutely sure. Maybe she missed him. Maybe he was just a regular passenger after all. But she never saw him leave the plane. And when the cargo was unloaded, there it was, a casket. She says this experience haunted her ever since, not in a frightening way, but in a way that makes her believe, without question, that some people really do find a way to stay close to the ones they love. The following account took place in the late summer of 1982 on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. In 1982, Hilton Head, which is now a huge resort island, still retains several undisturbed tracts of wilderness. This undeveloped area, then and now, has a cast iron skeleton-supported lighthouse. It is sometimes referred to as the Learnington Lighthouse, the name of the one-time plantation the light was constructed on. Hilton Head is noted for its famous red and white striped lighthouse in the harbor town a few miles away. That lighthouse was constructed for decorative purposes in 1969. The Learnington Lighthouse was constructed in 1880, and originally its beacon was matched up with the Front Range light on the beach. When the two lights were lined up, one over the other, the ship's captain knew it was time to begin their turn into the Savannah Shipping Canal. The light was deactivated in 1932. When I lived on the island, the area was a quiet forest with one of the largest of the remaining undeveloped chunks of land left. There were, of course, no trespassing signs posted everywhere, but for a young teenager, these meant very little. The lighthouse and the surrounding woods became one of the major hangouts for me and my circle of friends. Endless hours were spent hanging out in the old lamp room, climbing around the outside of the lighthouse on its skeleton frame, not smart, I know, and running around the forest. Having a special place like this to go to provided for a fresh adventure each time. Okay, but local folklore surrounding the lighthouse claimed that a lighthouse keeper named Adam Fripp suffered a heart attack during a hurricane while climbing the spiral staircase to the light to keep the lamps lit. Legend states that his daughter Caroline found Adam dead at the base of the staircase and was forced to tend to the light herself. She reportedly dragged her father back to their lodgings and pulled him up step by step as the storm surged and pushed the water higher and higher. Exhausted and half crazy, she was supposedly found a few days later, only to die soon after. From that point on, her ghostly figure has supposedly been seen on moonless nights walking up the spiral staircase, weeping. Well, that's the legend, and every lighthouse needs one. She is referred to as either the Blue Lady or the Lady in Blue. The blue aspect stems from her always wearing a blue flowered dress. After talking about it for some time, my friend Billy and I decided we were going to have a real adventure and spend a night at the lighthouse and see if we could see the Blue Lady ourselves. On a rainy Saturday, just before dusk, we made our way to the old hidden and dilapidated road which led to the lighthouse. This old road was our entrance into a time machine of the mind. It wound its way to the foundations of the keepers' houses, then a huge foundation where I believe a hospital once stood. Finally rounding a curve in the road, the pine and the oak trees would part, and the hulking rear range light sprang into full view. Constructed of iron, the slender tube that contains the staircase is supported by a steel skeletal framework. Rust bled heavily down its sides, giving way only sporadically to the few flecks of remaining white paint. Billy and I set up our small two-person tent off the small path under low-hanging branches covered in Spanish moss, about 20 yards from the lighthouse. We had supplies for the night: food, water, flashlights, a kerosene lamp, and a radio. After we set up, we ventured on to the lighthouse to see the night come. Neither Billy or I had been to the lighthouse after dark before, and to see it that way was strange. The massive live oak tree directly in front of the light and the brooding presence of the rusty structure in the growing evening shadows was quite eerie. It was also exhilarating. After climbing to the top, we returned to our tent as the rain was becoming somewhat heavy. Not only was it raining, but it was a moonless night. Billy and I had chosen it because of the Blue Lady legend, and the whole area was black as pitch. Anyone who has ever lived in a rural area knows how incredibly dark it can be when there are no lights at all nearby. The thick humidity somehow made it feel even darker. In daylight, my buddies and I would regularly joke about the lady in blue, but Billy and I now afforded her legend a bit of respect. To get our minds off of being a bit afraid, we blasted the radio, ate, and told jokes. This worked brilliantly for a couple of hours. Billy was laying back on his sleeping bag, flipping through a magazine, and the rain had lightened up a bit. I thought I would take a peek outside. Unzipping the front of the tent, I peered out. What I saw completely caught me off guard. It was the light that really took me by surprise, and particularly where it was coming from. There was a milky, low-lying fog which weaved its way around the trees, but didn't actually touch them. The fog came within 6 inches or so of the bark and then curled around them. Looking directly down, I saw the fog was behaving the same way with our tent. Above this, there was nothing. The light illuminating the woods seemed to be coming from the strange fog itself. It was unlike any fog or mist I have encountered before or since. The stuff looked like a thick liquid and moved and undulated very, very oddly. Billy was by my side now, looking at the weird, living mist as well. We both mentioned how we couldn't see through it. It completely hid the earth underneath. Its light was a bluish white, and it was surprisingly bright. For the remainder of the night, Billy and I were uneasy, and we didn't look out the tent again. We had difficulty occupying our time, much less sleeping. We also noticed an odd, regular pattern of rain that fell on our tent. Drip, pause. Drip, 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 pause. Drip, drip, drip. I still remember the pattern as it seemed to be continuing endlessly. And being in a thick forest in a supposedly haunted area on a rainy night with a weird fog surrounding us did nothing to dispel the thought that someone or something was pouring water on the tent in a purposeful manner. It was a bit maddening. Around 5 a.m., I was finally on the brink of an uneasy sleep when the most bizarre and horrifying scream I ever heard cut ferociously through the woods. It sounded like a mixture of an infant, a wild animal, and a possessed man. It lasted for about 5 seconds or so, and when it stopped, there was absolutely no sound. The rain had stopped. There was no early morning songbird. Absolutely nothing. I know that sounds dramatic, but it is exactly as it happened. Billy and I exchanged glances, stuffed our backpacks, disassembled our tent, and as quickly as possible made our way back to the abandoned road. The mist, by the way, had completely vanished. I lived on the island for 6 years and never heard anything even close to this scream. It still echoes in my mind 34 years later. Maybe it was the ghost of the one-time lightkeeper. Whatever it was, the lady in blue, the old lightkeeper, or something else entirely, it wasn't a living person. It was simply too weirdly loud, as if it was somehow amplified. Billy and I both agreed It was the most blood-curdling and creepy sound we had ever heard. This happened when I was in college, around 2013. My family had planned to go out for the day, but I decided to stay home to finish my homework and then reward myself by watching a movie in my room. Alone in our house, I got to work on my assignments. During this time, I had this underlying feeling of just being aware of how large and empty our house felt as the evening settled in. I was never uncomfortable being alone, so I ignored the subtle uneasiness that pressed on my back. After finishing my homework, I let out a big sigh and shook the tension out of my arms. I was ready to relax and watch a movie in my bedroom. By then, it was already nighttime. I hadn't gotten up to turn on any additional lights as I worked, so the rest of the house was filled with a darkness that stretched out before me. As I was about to go upstairs, I reached for the hallway light switch. Before I could touch it, I froze at the sight before me. There, in the hallway's darkness, was a figure unlike anything I had ever seen. As best I could describe it, it resembled both a human and a giant spider. Its flesh was a sickly white that easily defined its form from that of the shadows in the hallway. Its limbs were splayed on the floor, crawling backwards at an unnatural speed. Long, dark hair trailed behind it, following its eerie, contorted body. I felt my energy drain from me, and my brain couldn't form a logical thought to deal with any of this crawling, monstrous thing. I fled to my bedroom, turned on every light available in my path as tears just streamed down my face. I struggled to process what I had just witnessed. I ended up frantically messaging my friends, just desperate for any kind of comfort, including them telling me I must have imagined it. I tried to calm myself, but I couldn't bring myself to tell my family when they came home. I knew they would be terrified. We were all kind of really afraid of ghosts and never watched horror movies. I never saw it again, but ever since that night, I have never felt at ease when alone. The memory of that ghostly, crawling thing haunts me to this day. After going through a series of challenging life circumstances, I made the decision to move with my 2 children and start fresh, somewhere new. I wanted a place that felt more peaceful, more rural, somewhere that could offer us all a better life. When I told my kids we were moving out of state and showed them the photos of our future, snow-covered fields, quiet farms, and woodland animals native to the area, they lit up with excitement. I could barely contain mine just seeing how happy they were. No more city concrete for us. A couple of months later, we were settled into our new home. We started falling into a rhythm, taking evening walks on the nearby trails after school and work, watching wild deer graze in the field, experiencing snow for the first time in a long while. I felt like we landed in a little pocket of peace. We were actually where we were meant to be. Then came that night. It was a month or so after the move, during our normal post-dinner routine. I don't know why, but I had this odd, instinctive feeling that night. I wanted us all close together. So we decided to sleep in the living room, something we've done a few times before during weekend movie nights. we were all piled on our L-shaped couch. My daughter and I were watching a TV show while my son had already fallen asleep on the other end of the sofa. Another episode had finished, and I glanced over at my daughter. I told her it was time to close her eyes, and she said she wasn't tired and asked for one more episode. Looking back, I'm glad I said yes. Just as the new episode began, a shaking movement started from the area where my son was sleeping. Violent shaking. My head snapped in his direction to figure out what was going on. Was he having a seizure? But it wasn't him. It was his blanket. The blanket, just the blanket, was shaking. Not a little. It trembled and jumped as if someone were shaking it from underneath or grabbing at it. But my son was lying completely still. He wasn't moving at all. And for some reason, this wasn't waking him up. My daughter and I shot upright from the couch. "Do you see that?" I shouted in panic. Her eyes were wide with terror as she asked me what was happening. I moved quickly, my hand reaching out towards the blanket, heart pounding in my throat. And just before I could touch it, the blanket lifted straight into the air as if someone grabbed one corner and yanked it upward. No windows open, no fans, no explanation. I stood frozen. My daughter was screaming behind me, and my son remained completely still and asleep until I touched him. He shot up and scrambled over to me, wide-eyed and frightened. I turned on every light in the living room. There were other strange things that happened that night, but nothing came close to that moment with the blanket. But it was enough. I wasn't going to continue to stay there with my children. We packed bags, just clothes and essentials, and drove to a motel that week. We stayed with friends until we could find a new place. I threw away the blanket, just in case. About a year ago, I moved my small business to a new location. I sell candles and crystals and a few herbal treatments. It's a modest building. I share both sides of my brick walls with neighboring stores, and there's a small office and storage in the back. My shop is located in a quiet town on an even quieter street. I haven't had any drama, let alone paranormal activity, since I moved in. But about a month ago, a customer came into the store and asked me how I was liking the space. I said it was lovely and I was really enjoying the community and that things were going really well. Then they got a hesitant look on their face, as if they were deciding something, and then asked me, "Have you heard any bumps in the night here?" I laughed and thought maybe they were making a joke since I sell crystals and such. But I told him no. Plus, I was never there at night. The store closed at 5 p.m. He nodded and explained that he used to work in the same space when it was a computer repair shop. He would work long hours in the back trying to catch up on orders, and strange things happened to him then. With a little prodding, he described shuffling noises, things shifting as if being bumped into, and once he swore, someone whispered in his ear. Now, I've always found ghost stories incredibly interesting, and I was a little surprised I hadn't picked up on anything while being in the space. Later that week, I was tired from a very long day of work, but I finally remembered to leave my laptop in the back room with the camera app open to record as long as it could. Checking the footage the next day, I realized I hadn't picked the best angle to record the whole room. Again, I was really tired the evening before. Well, I hit play anyway to review the footage. Not with big headphones like on the ghost shows or anything, and I certainly wasn't going to watch 5 hours worth of video in real time just to find out nothing happened. So I scrolled to where it got really dark at night. I hit play again and listened for a minute or two, and that's when I heard it. There was a distinct shuffling near the computer, walking around as if someone was looking for something, and they even bumped the desk and the camera shook a tiny bit. At this point, I really wasn't convinced it was a ghost. I was more concerned that someone had a key to my space and was possibly stealing from me. I ended up buying a few inexpensive security cameras to place around the office and shop, something I was meaning to do anyway. The second time I recorded, nothing happened. The third time, more disappointment. But eventually, unexplainable events started to unfold. I've seen my office chair slowly swivel and turn in a circle. I've watched my pen suddenly roll and drop off my desk. Let me tell you, when you see your office door open and then eventually close on its own, you start to feel different about the space you're occupying. I don't stay in the shop after closing anymore. It's one thing to be in there with the noise and bustle of customers. It's another to be in a quiet, empty place with a ghost. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of Spooky Ghost Stories. I hope you've enjoyed this best of collection. Let me know if you have a favorite, and of course, share it with friends, especially if they would find that odd. But wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return.
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.